then there's also therapy too.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Park Pals. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh my gosh, we have to start with the news of the day, the news of the weekend, the news of my life, truly. And I already posted about it, so I won't go like too crazy about it. Although I am, in true Leslie fashion, probably going to go overboard, but whatever. Anyway, Entertainment Tonight or Entertainment Weekly or whatnot did a, one of those press reviews where they talk to the cast and crew of something that's coming out, mostly the cast. And there was one on Severance, which we know our boy Adam Scott is in, and he responded to a fan theory that Park Pals podcast had, and I am overjoyed, overwhelmed, so grateful. Oh my god, he was so kind and nice about my theory. I was like, he was smiling into my eyes. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, essentially there is a video of him looking at my video or our video of the podcast with my fan theory that Congressman Murray is in the Severance world because he's totally robotic, and that he seems like he's Congressman Murray that we see in the show is like the innie, if you will. If you're a Severance person, you'd understand that. The new season just came out. You gotta watch it if you haven't. It's on Apple TV. So good. I haven't started the third season, the most recent season, so I'm so stoked to get started with that. But anyway, they do this all the time on YouTube and on Entertainment where they have the cast like respond to fan theories or respond to things. And if you're not a fan of Severance, it's like a very intellectual, gets deep vibes. So people are like thinking they see Easter eggs when they really don't, or they're seeing Easter eggs and they really do. You know what I mean? So when I say he was looking into my eyes, he wasn't looking directly into my eyes. He was looking at the video. But to me, he was looking at me. It was so beautiful. And I am just over the moon. My friend Erin showed it to me. She said her husband was watching it because her husband and her are fans of Severance, and they like saw this YouTube clip, and I would have never known. I consider myself to be up to date on stuff, but I don't. There's just so many things on the internet. How was I supposed to know? And they don't like tag you; they just kind of scoop it up. So social media is kind of like, I guess, a free reign. So thank you so much for listening to this 2-minute long thing of me just fangirling over Adam Scott listening to us and just being so kind and nice about every fan theory. It was very special. It was very validating, and it was very like, that's cute, but no. Well, about the Congressman Murray part, there's a claymation portion of it too, which is really fun. And essentially, I was saying that the claymation of Ben's is the claymation in the Severance intro, but the Severance intro he is saying is not claymation. It looks like it, but it's more of like an animated vibe. The opening sequence. So yeah. And then the other thing that I kind of want to touch base on is that I do read all the comments on the Park Pals Instagram, which I know is not the most healthiest of things, but somebody commented and said that Adam Scott probably shouldn't listen to, or like, has he listened to the podcast? Because you guys aren't really a fan of Ben or Ice Clown. And I was like, no, that's completely the opposite. I don't know where that info came from because we love Ben. We're obsessed with him. And then, I can't control how everybody hears it. They think that it didn't come across that way. And I know I shouldn't be giving it airtime, but at the beginning, as an analytical standpoint, of course, when Ben first started, we did not like him because he was very callous. But I never judged him for the Ice Clown thing. In fact, if you listen to the last episode, we were upset that, his advisors as an adult, like, advisor for him as Icetown, not Ice Clown. I would never call him Ice Clown knowingly or meaning anger or angst or anything like that. But we even said like it'd be really cool if his advisors had like helped him. It wasn't all his fault. He was a child essentially. I mean, he was 18, so like legally an adult, but like you're still a child, I feel, at that point to make decisions for a whole entire town. And we did say that, we think that it would be cool if he had apologized or whatever, but like it's not necessarily needed because there's no closure that could really signify anything that would, erase what happened. But we also made it very clear that he's come so far and he's achieved so much and has created so many things for so many towns. So I'm not really sure where that energy came off, but we love Adam Scott. We love Ben. And especially now with Leslie and Ben's love. Are you kidding me? They're they're perfect together, that we're obsessed with him. So I hope that it doesn't come across that we're not fans, because when we analyzed the beginning, both him and Chris were annoying to us. I think I don't like Chris more than I don't like Ben. You know what I'm saying? And also, I don't even know where that came from. So I know I gave it too much airtime, but and now even Chris is matured. Again, in the beginning of a show, you have to have an arc. You're not going to like everybody. And I can't control what everybody thinks of me and my opinions either. This is literally a fan podcast. So, hope that helps. I hope that clears things up. We love Adam. We would love for him to come on the show. I'd love to talk to him about his character development and his comedy and Severance, and I can't wait to watch it. And I am just beaming from ear to ear, eye to eye. I don't know what the thing is, but I am so beyond glad that he responded. And I know this happens all the time. Cast goes on press tours all of the time and responds to random ass fan things that like the Entertainment Weekly has scoured the internet for, but he was responding to me in our podcast, and Maddie was listening intently, and it was perfect. So thank you for joining me on that little ride of explaining. Not that I needed to, but oh my God, I love Adam Scott. And I love that we got, oh my God. Okay, I'll stop. But I just love that he responded to us and how smiley he was. And he wasn't like mean at all about it or judgy about it at all, and gave me some validation, and it was perfect. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you on the show. I'm being dead serious. I don't know if I can find his team, because when you're of Adam Scott's caliber, not your team isn't always listed publicly. So we'll see. All right. Okay. So now we're in this next episode, and I want to mention Clark Freeman, who played the park ranger in Partridge. He actually sent in a voicemail, so let's go ahead and listen to him. Thank you so much, Clark. I really appreciate your time and for sending in some information.
Hey guys, my name is Clark Freeman, and I played the park ranger in Parks and Rec. I always imagined his name was Brandon or something, but no, he didn't have a name. He was just Park Ranger. Thank you so much for having me on this thing. This is really cool that you guys do this and watch these episodes. It's awesome. I love it. To answer your questions, how did I get my job on Parks? Well, if I remember correctly, I went in and I read for like another one-day guest star or something. At the beginning of the episode, isn't there a guy who's trying to serve papers to someone? And then he does, I don't know. I remember I was serving papers to somebody in a take, and I did that, and it was good, and then I didn't hear anything. So I was like, oh, well, I didn't get that. And then I think it was that night at about 9:15, I still had the voicemail for quite a while. I don't know why. But from Dorian Frankel, the casting director, called my cell phone directly at 9:15 p.m. I guess she'd just gotten out of a show or something. And the producers had left her all these messages saying, oh, for the shoot tomorrow outside at the reservoir, we're adding a part. We're adding a role. We're adding the role of the park ranger, and we want Clark Freeman to play him. And so she called my cell phone and was like, please pick up or call me back or something, because they want to use you and they want to know if you're available tomorrow. So I must have called back immediately or something. Long story short, my call was 7 a.m. the next day. So I went in, got fit real quick in my park ranger outfit, and then went into the hair and makeup trailer. I didn't know what the scene was. I didn't know anything about it until that morning. And then I got my sides while I was sitting there in the makeup chair, and they were dealing with me. And I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and there's Adam Scott. And I've always been an Adam Scott fan for a long time. And I was like, oh my God, hi. And Adam's like, oh my God, hi, I'm Adam. And I'm like, hi, I'm Clark. And he's like, oh, we're doing this thing today up at the thing, right? And I was like, yeah. So he was super nice, super cordial. We all got ready, and then we jumped in a van with some hair and makeup and a driver and I think a producer or two, and then Adam. And then Amy jumps in the front seat, and she has like her cell phone out, and she's going through pictures of nieces or nephews or something. I don't know, some babies or something. I was in the back of the van in my uniform, and Adam was talking to her, and she was like, "Oh, look at these! Aren't they so cute? Aren't they so cute?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then she turned around and she saw me. She like kind of scanned the van real quick. It was almost empty, and I, I remember she saw me and stopped and went, "Oh, hi." And I was like, "Hey, I'm Clark." And then Adam's like, "That's Clark." And she's like, "Hey, Amy." Okay, and then right back to the pictures. So that's how I met those two. And then we got up to a reservoir up in the mountains, in the Hollywood Hills somewhere. I forget exactly what reservoir it was. But we blocked the scene a couple times, and then I mean, it is not a huge scene. It's just one joke, basically. And then we shot it from all different angles, from across the lake, from next to it, from this and that. But being outside and being a reservoir, it wasn't like a closed set or anything, so people were still walking around. And I will say the costumes were so good that people came up to me all day and they were like, "Hey, what are they filming over here?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a TV show. I don't know. They got some people. I don't know." So basically, they thought I was a park ranger, working there like for the set. And then I remember once there was these three guys, and I was talking to them, and they'd called action, but I was still talking to them. And as the scene goes on and Adam throws the key, into the lake, I remember turning to the guys and being like, "Excuse me 1 second." And then I walked into the scene and I was like, "Hey, you can't throw anything in the lake," or whatever that thing was. It's not a garbage dump, pal. So the guys then immediately knew I was in the scene, and I don't know if it freaked them out or they were excited or what. I never saw them again. So yeah, that we did that scene a couple times, and that was pretty much it. We all went home. We went our merry separate ways. It was one day for me. And it's been, what is it now? Almost 12, 13 years of getting to talk about it with people like you. And I still get texts from friends that rewatch, and go through it, and they hit that episode. And I get the, "Hey, Icetown" quote sent to me all the time on my texts, and or pictures of people's bedrooms with the flat screen on the wall. They're like, "Oh, hey, you're in my bedroom." And I was like, that's creepy. Stop texting me. No, so yeah, that was it. I love this show. I went through and I watched the whole thing afterwards. I didn't know the show before I did it. And then I did it and I was like, "This is really funny." And then I watched it and I was like, no, this is really funny. So my wife and I cycle through there. There are 3 or 4 shows you have to watch before bed, whether it's, it's The Office, or like New Girl, or Parks and Rec, or I don't know. She's better at it. She watches all the shows before bed. So yeah, that was my day. And afterwards, it was the easiest day ever because it was with amazing people doing amazing things. And I would love to work with Amy and Adam again because they're awesome. Adam actually works on that show Severance with my friend Yul Vesgaz. So I mean, careers have long and weird winding roads. So I ended up doing a show called Narcos Mexico for a couple years, and one of the guys I acted with a lot on that show, Yul Vesgaz, who is an amazing human being in person, plays the guy on Severance with Adam. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like everyone knows each other on some level, and I hope to work with all of them again. Is there anything I'd like to promote right now? Yeah, no. I have been working on a feature film for quite some time with my sister, Cassidy Freeman, who you might know from such shows as The Righteous Gemstones or Longmire or Smallville back in the day. And she's on the new Hulu show Paradise as well. We have been working on a project for years now called All That Remains, about my father, who used to smuggle artwork out of Russian-occupied Czechoslovakia all during the Cold War. And she and I've been writing, and we shot a short proof of concept last year during the strike of the film, and it's gone on to a bunch of film festivals and won a bunch of awards, and we're just trying to find funding to get the feature version made about adult children that come home to care for an ailing parent who has Lewy body dementia, and they find out as they're caring for him that he was actually this big art smuggler back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they need to get the information from his ailing brain before he can no longer remember what he did, even though his house is covered in the artwork that he smuggled. And it's minus the dementia. It's basically a true story. So I think that's pretty cool, and we're working on that. It's called All That Remains. And that's about it. And you can catch me on Real Clark Freeman on Instagram. That's pretty much where I am nowadays. Thank you guys so much for this. I really appreciate it. And now I got to go back and watch some episodes. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Thank you so much, Clark. We love that so much. Look at all this Severance crossover that we were just talking about. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Now, I mean, we knew Adam Scott was awesome from, everyone else that we've talked to as far as guest stars go. So like now I'm even more smitten with him. So after this all happened, and then now just as smitten as I am with Amy, you know what I mean? Whenever I hear that she was amazing and friendly and nice and kind, I am even more smitten now with Adam than I ever have been in my entire life. And Ben. To go up to someone, I think, to go up to a guest star that's new, a fresh face, and to introduce yourself to them as a lead actor on the show is really beautiful and kind and just like so welcoming and inclusive, and that's just like so important, I feel, with a guest star, because a lot of the guest stars on Parks have said that it's not common on sets all the time to have the lead actors of the show be super welcoming. So it's really nice and really lovely to hear that Parks kind of created this atmosphere of camaraderie, friendship, new people being welcomed in. So lovely. Oh my God, thank you so much. And yes, you're right. There was a guy serving papers to Ron. He was, serving him a subpoena to be sued by Jam. So that's really interesting that that's the sides that you read, and that they just decided to add an extra person. So how amazing. And also to be called directly on your cell phone from Dorian. That sounds incredible too, because usually you go through the process, your casting calls the agent calls you, so to be called directly is kind of amazing and scary and wonderful at the same time. Love that so much. And yeah, so nice about the van story. We hear many van stories of guest stars going on location to set with Adam, Amy, whoever else is in the scene, and so I love hearing how, I don't want to say normal, but normal things are, because that's something that you might do at an office job too, is like show pictures of your nephews or whatever babies are in your life. Maybe it was her kids on her phone too at that time. So to hear that that's just kind of another day at the office is lovely, and that Adam was like, yeah, this is Clark. I just love that so much. It's wonderful. And so cool that they thought you were a park ranger. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense too, because, if it's not right in Hollywood or whatever, I can absolutely imagine people, including myself probably, being curious about like, so what are they doing over here? What's going on? So that's amazing. I love that so much. And yeah, the Severance crossover, I know I already said it, but like that's just really ironic, I guess. It's not really ironic. I guess it's just coincidental because Severance is out now, but it's really lovely. To me, I'm going to call it ironic, I guess. But to me, that's awesome that, Yule from Severance, he's awesome. And, he's now working with Adam and all these things. So, so cool. Love that so much. Oh my gosh. Great. That project with your sister sounds phenomenal. I cannot wait until that comes out. That's really cool and a really different, interesting take on, what happens when a loved one is crossing over into their journey of like, how do we make sure that we remember them and also remember their stories or even get their stories? Because I know a lot of people, when their parents are older, they find out things that they had no idea was going on at all, and it was like, it'd be really cool if I had known that when I was a kid, but also maybe I couldn't have handled it. So maybe as an adult it's nice to see what's going on and like this life you lived before you were a parent, you know what I mean? Or maybe double life while you were a parent and an art smuggler, you know what I mean? So that's really cool. All That Remains. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that, and definitely let us know when that comes out, or any progressions that you have on that, so that we can post about it, because I'd love to hear it. And I'll tag you on Instagram. Thank you so much, Clark, for sending in that voice memo. It was really cool to hear, so I really appreciate it. Yay. Okay. So sorry, well, not really that sorry, but sorry if you like it's taken a while to get started on the actual episode that we're covering today, which is Animal Control, Season 5, Episode 18. You probably already heard that Maddie is not with us right now. She has some travel plans going on, but she'll send in a summary a little bit later, so we'll get to hear that. But let's go ahead and get started with Animal Control. So this was written by Megan Amram, who's known for Parks, Good Place, Silicon Valley. She was also a producer on A Man on the Inside, which is Ted Danson and Mike Schur's new show, which you absolutely must watch. It's on Netflix. I love it so much. The gal, I can't remember her name, but Charlie's wife in real life and the one that he crushes on in Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the daughter of Ted Danson. She's great. They're all great. The gal from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who is also in Encanto. I can't remember anybody's names. That's awful. Anyway, she's in it too. The cast is great. I love it very much. It's set in San Francisco. It's really good. Megan Amram, who wrote this episode, also worked on the Sabrina Carpenter Christmas special, which is on Netflix, so that's super fun. And then for Parks, she wrote Ron and Diane, which is amazing, great episode, and she'll come back in next season for Flu Season 2 and the episode called Anniversaries. And I just have to say, so much of this episode, and I know this has to do with Megan, so much of this episode, like so many of these lines just on the page are so good. There's a few quotes on IMDb. You know how if you scroll down, you can see like most memorable quotes from this episode or whatever. And you just read the quotes on the paper or on the screen, I guess, without a voice to it, without a character. And you're like, that is comedy gold. It's genius, it's smart, it's funny, and it's in the character and it's in the theme of the show. It's just so good, and I just wanted to make that very clear that this is funny regardless of the character reading it. So to have the character actually reading it is just only going to elevate it. So the writing on this and all the shows, but this episode is phenomenal. So many one-liners. All right, so this was directed by Craig Zisk, who has done a bunch of episodes with Parks thus far. I think he actually did either last episode or the episode before that, and I did a whole breakdown on him. He's done a ton of comedy shows that we're really interested in, including Scrubs, which I love, and a bunch others. So now let's get into the summary. Here's Maddie.
Hi, Park Pals. I am sad that I am missing yet another episode, but happy that I can contribute at least a voice memo with summary and thoughts. Hoping to be more consistent moving forward. But here we go. We are in the episode of Animal Control, and here is my summary. The Animal Control Department needs a revamp after Chris gets hurt, so Leslie and Chris work on hiring new employees. Andy, Tom, and Ben work on getting Dennis Feynman to give money to the charity. Meanwhile, Anne gets a sick Ron to go to the doctor. This has some scenes in it where I just remember the first time and even the up to the seventh time I've seen this episode that I still laugh out loud. So with their whole revamping, when the original employees of the Animal Control Department show up to interview for the positions they were just fired from, and they're like, "Oh, this job, man," it just cracks me up because it's I don't know why. I think it's the way it's acted. It's just the fact that it's not even out of the realm of possibility that two Pawneans would act this way. So I just absolutely love that. And this is this monumental moment that Holly and I have been talking about for a long time, that we have a special guest that comes in as a fellow Night Guardian with Chris and is like, just please don't give me this job. I feel like she probably sees Dr. Nygaard more frequently than Chris does, which is kind of scary. And I just love that they're working together on this. They're teaming up, Chris and Leslie. So I feel like we haven't had a Chris and Leslie moment for a while. So it's really nice. But then we have Andy, Tom, and Ben. And I love Andy. I think more people need to be like Andy in this whole B story with Dennis Feynman. He just doesn't take the fact that Dennis Feynman is a jerk. It's just because you have money and power and we want your money doesn't mean you should be able to treat us like this, treat other people like this, call your financial guy Dum Eddie. That's so mean. And all in the name of comedy for the show, right? But I bet you anything that there are people that actually act that way when they have that power and money. And so it's really sad. that I'm sure there are people that treat other people like that out there. There's got to be someone on the writing staff has met that created Dennis Feynman through their experience. So he does a great job playing this character. I, for the life of me, cannot remember his name off the top of my head. But he does a fabulous job, and he's also in Brooklyn Nine-Nine and plays Pimento, and he does a great job in that role too. Very different role, but yeah, so he does a great job of making you hate him, and I think that just makes a good actor, right? Is you are like, oh my gosh, I cannot stand this person. And again, like I said, Ben and Tom are like, Tom kind of idolizes him, which bothers me, but he does come around to saying like, yeah, he's definitely a jerk. Ben is like, he obviously wants the money for the charity because it's a good cause. He has this little talking head that's like one of my favorites when he's like, so I'm going to suck up to him. Like he's got that fake smile and like sing-songy phrase. So we want his money. And so I love that. He does that so well, Adam Scott. But yeah, I just love Andy in this. I think he's the winner of this second story. Is like he's not okay with somebody acting like that, regardless of their money and power. And then of course the scenes with Anne and Ron and him being like none of your business. I have an uncle that does yoga when he asks about mental health history. It's just iconic, that whole questionnaire between the Dr. Harris and Ron. And I love that Dr. Harris is like, no, like, he's like, I love that he doesn't ask questions. I'm sure that not all doctors feel that way, but I'm sure some do. And I love this whole, like, Ron is not, and it's not just because he's Ron. Like, I feel like it's heavily, and I don't want to like generalize this, but a lot of the guys I know don't like going to the doctor. They don't like knowing what's wrong. They're just like, that's fine, it'll go away. And so like, that's like embodied in Ron here. Side note, if people haven't seen the Medcast sketch from SNL, you should look that up. It's about how the only way they can get men to go to the doctor is if they make it feel like a podcast, and it's hilarious. But anyway, so, and I love this endearing part that like Anne comes in, is like, you have people in your life now that rely on you and want you around, like, so you've got to take care of yourself. Like, it's not just you anymore. And I think he needed that wake-up call that, they want him in their life, and he needs to take care of himself so he gets to stay in their life. So overall, like, I love this episode. I love every part of this episode, and every story that's happening, and just a lot of the character development that's happening as well. So yeah, that's my summary and my actually kind of long thoughts on the episode, but hopefully we can be chatting about this in person next time, Holly. Okay, thank you, and enjoy the episode.
Yay! Thank you so much, Maddie, for setting that in. Yes, great information, and I agree with everything that you said. So, love that very much. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of a growth episode, honestly, for so many people, and we'll get into it, but, kind of as a baseline, I feel like, just going off your summary, I feel like Ron is growing to understand how his actions are going to affect the people that he loves, and taking care of himself. I feel like Tom is growing because I don't think in season 1 or 2 he would have given his profits to charity, like even if it's 5 cents or on the dollar or whatever the hell. So I think that's a really lovely progression for them. And then, we've got Chris growing too. But also, it's not so much Chris. It's, Chris kind of like okays it and goes forward with it, but April, that's like the third growth, and one of the most important growths for me to see, because they even mentioned in the episode how she started season 1 drinking alcohol in City Hall and just like being total like, fuck it, I don't care, you know what I mean, vibes. And then here she is in season 5 coming up with this beautiful, wonderful, excellent idea to combine these budgets and make it effective, make a government department effective for what it needs to be. And it's really lovely. I love it. So thank you, Maddie, again for that. And yes, Dennis Feinstein is one of the characters that everybody that, from interviews and things like that I've heard from the cast and crew on Parks, Dennis is one of the ones that has no redeeming qualities, like throughout the whole series. They talk about how Jam kind of, even though we don't love him, John Glazer, we love. Glazer, love. Jam, Except for when Tammy takes over. That's kind of his vulnerability redeeming quality where he's like, oh God, we need to save him. You know what I mean? But Dennis doesn't really have any of those moments. And it does suck because Tom is kissing his ass even though Dennis Feinstein was like terrible to him, a couple seasons ago when he tried to make his own perfume. He was just, but you know what I mean? So we'll get into that, all that and more. All right, so we start this episode at Animal Control. We've seen them a handful of times, but not a bunch, so it's cool to see them again. We have Colton Dunn, who you know from many comedy things, including Superstore. That was the big one that I remember him from. And then we have the late, great Harris Wittels, which is the other part of Animal Control. And I did go on a bit of a deep dive, and I've done this many times. I've always shouted out Harris whenever I get a chance because he was just such a huge backbone of Parks. And he should never be forgotten, and we should never forget that he had such a hand in why this comedy was so perfect and so, like, that it resonated with so many of us. And he's just so funny and so accomplished. His mom actually wrote a beautiful article about him. I'm going to post that in the show notes, and she was really poignant, and I really loved this article. It talks about how he was doing stand-up at 18, and then Sarah Silverman discovered him at a club doing stand-up and, asked him to submit some of his work for her show, and she hired him. And that's kind of where he got his start, and so lovely. And he was so young. Oh, my God. Prodigy. He also did the podcast Comedy Bang Bang a bunch, which was one of the first comedy shows that I really, remember being improv comedy vibes, which was so great. And he passed away at 30. 30 years old. I am older than that now. And that's just nuts. And it's wild to think about. Like I said, the article his mom wrote was so profound. And she laid out some great points about recovery and rehab and the relationship between families and the rehab centers and the guilt that she had because she said it was a quote that she saw the light go out in his eyes, but she just figured it was because he was so busy. He was doing so many shows. He was living his dreams in Hollywood and all these things. And then he was in and out of rehabs. And the last one, he checked himself out a week early, and then he died in that week. And he had texted his mom previously about how it was the last episode of Parks. She's really going to enjoy it. They're doing a big reunion moment. He had found a place in Manhattan because he was going to do Master of None with Aziz. And I just hope he knows, and I hope his mom knows what a legend he was. And I know that this is way later on in the game, but as we are analyzing it, it's very important that we mention it because it's just a big deal. And I hope that we can keep giving back to him as far as the legend goes and as far as, what he gave to us. So we're looking for you, man. We are. Okay, so back to the episode. You can tell that Animal Control is not run well. There's a dead bird they tried to use as a work whistle, like at the beginning of Flintstones. And this is one of those things in Parks where you're like, in the show, it's hilarious. If they had done that in real life, woof. Terrible, awful, brutal for animal cruelty. And gross also at the same time. A dead bird is not sanitary whatsoever. But that is, and then just everything in this in this little piece of Animal Control when we're getting introduced to them is magic. It's so good. It's just really funny. He wrote a joke on a napkin for a funny dog named Bark Obama, which is so funny. I love that he said it's either a cat or a possum. Don't know which one is which is a little bit of a throwback to the possum episode that Andy catches, and we don't know which possum is which. There's a goat in the background of Leslie's talking head, chewing on something. I don't know if it's a plastic bag or a napkin or what it is. Harris takes Leslie's insults as a compliment, essentially, which is, oh my God. And side note, keep in mind that Animal Control is typically the pound, it is run by the government where animals are taken, that have been surrendered or found on the street. They, coordinate foster homes for dogs and cats and animals and things like that. So they need the proper care and the proper hygiene and cleanliness of a shelter, essentially, because that's why these animals were out in the wild anyway, and they just do not have the facilities. It looks so bad. The Parks crew did a great job of making this building look pretty bad. It doesn't look great, doesn't look clean, and it's run by, stoners. So there's not really much efficiency going on there. But Chris is very nice. He's like, listen, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this isn't what we think it is, it's fine. And then he gets caught in what they call a coyote trap, but I always thought it was a bear trap, probably both. And so Chris is like, nope, bye, you're fired. Like, we can't be living like this. And especially with Chris, like, being, like, fit and exercising. This is one of my running feet, he says. So that's a deal breaker for Chris. And these guys are just excited to get fired, essentially. They're like, let's go to Jamaica. And then the other one says, no, let's go to Jamaica. Oh, is that what you said? It's so funny. They had a great chemistry here. Love it. Okay, so now we're at City Hall, and Ron is very sick. He is bundled up and sweating at the same time, just drinking whiskey, and Anne tries to give him water, and he only takes the ice cube, which is reminiscent of how he eats the banana at the end, kind of, sandwiching it in between something bad. He says he was watching a movie with the girls, and they were sniffling, so he thought they were crying because of the sad nature of the film, but really they were sick, and he caught it. They mentioned Finding Nemo a bunch, I feel, in the last few episodes. They don't actually say the name in this particular episode, but he says that the movie is about an orange fish that gets separated from his father. And oh my gosh, I cry at Finding Nemo too. So I would have thought that it was crying too. But yeah, we mention it. We mentioned Finding Nemo at the Movie Palace, the Movie Dome. Leslie's like, get Finding Nemo, and now this. And I thought, I had to look up. I was like, maybe it came out in the same year, and it didn't. It came out in 2003, and this is 2013 when Parks came out. But still, it stands the test of time. Go watch Finding Nemo if you haven't already. Also, it's really funny. Somebody on IMDb is keeping track of all the movies Ron has seen. I saw it in a previous episode because they had mentioned a movie that he saw, and they were like, well, he says he's only seen 2 movies. And now they're saying all these other movies that he watched with the girls, or like just, as a random side note. And I just really think it's funny that someone's tracking this. So I'm just telling you, I'm just spreading the word. Ron mentions that so that he has Finding Nemo. This would be the 5th movie Ron has seen in his life, because we had The Bridge on the River Kwai, which is the movie I believe that Leslie has on while she gives him the steak birthday party moment. And then we've got The Dirty Dozen, which was mentioned in Eagleton, Patton, and then Herbie Fully Loaded. And now Finding Nemo. Herbie Fully Loaded. See, his world is expanding with the girls because he wouldn't have watched Herbie without them, okay? Or Finding Nemo. So, good for them, honestly. And I was kind of thinking also, like, why is he at work? Because I can't see him being, like, committed, I have to go to work even though I'm sick. I think it's just a routine moment, you know what I mean? Like, he's just following what he does every day. And he also doesn't want to admit that he's sick. That's probably more so what it is. He's like, I'm fine, we're good, getting over it, and he's like, no, on that point, he's like, no, I'm a grown man. And then he tries to stand up and he passes out. And I do love Anne here that she just did not even flinch. She was like, yep, sounds about right. She's a nurse and she knows that this is the normal course of events if you don't take care of your sickness. And there's a deleted scene where I believe he passed out because of dehydration, if anyone was wondering, because not many people pass out from the cold, like from a common cold, but he hadn't been drinking any water and he was getting even more dehydrated by just drinking whiskey. So yeah. Tom is giving Andy and Ben a pop quiz about the different fragrances and scents that they are going to be, using / studying up on with Dennis Feinstein, because Dennis Feinstein has his fragrance empire. And Ben wants bigger companies to donate to Sweetums, so they're going to talk to Dennis and see if he'll donate some money to charity. They all smell bad, by the way. This is where we learn the word Rolexis also. A Lexus filled with Rolexes, which I love that tiny detail at the end. You can't drive it. Tom wants them to look better. He wants Ben to wear tux, and Andy is hopeless, so just take a shower. And Andy already took what he calls a Dwyer shower, which is where he rubs his armpits with air fresheners. Fair enough. For Andy, anyway. All right, so now we're at the city council meeting, and Leslie is saying everyone in animal control is incompetent. Everyone knows this. Jerry Gergich got his start there. And I love that everyone already knows what that means. They're all kind of nodding and like, oh, that makes sense. I get it. And the reason that they're talking about this is because Leslie is looking for a new director for animal control, and because, those two were fired. And Jam comes up with his person. And I think this was one of the quotes I was talking about earlier. That was just somebody had pulled a quote from this episode and put it on IMDb. And this line that Jam has about, like, alcoholic, little grabby, but otherwise a good dude. That's not the full line, but that line on the page, on the screen, like just the words without anyone saying it, without, John Glazer reading it. It's so good. It's a laugh out loud line. So, of course, when you, like Maddie said in her summary, all these lines are just making you crack up out loud because it's so perfect writing. So to just add the element of the character and the acting, perfect. Anyway, Leslie says to, open this up to more discussion. We don't need just Jam's person to be in the running for this. And then we learn that, Hauser explains that everyone takes turn with departmental appointments. It's Jam's turn now, then Dexhart. And, I mean, this is not uncommon for, I think, a lot of government situations, so I'll just leave it there. But, now we're learning where local government kind of and corruption comes in because they're not hiring people that are actually qualified. So Leslie is like, no way. Like, we're going to do research. We're going to find a person. It's going to be, correct. We're going to do the process that we're supposed to be doing as elected officials. And I love that line, too. And by love, I don't know what the word for that is. It's like a hate love. I don't know whatever. The line of like, this whole place runs on dibs. Classic government. Side note, Dexhart is in there, and we haven't really seen him in a very long time, and he is lovely. Kevin Simons, shout out to Kevin Simons. He's doing a lot of theater in LA and surrounding areas. I'll tag him so that you guys can follow him because we did a wonderful interview that I'll also post in the show notes a while back. He was one of the early interviews, I feel, and he was a great interview, very kind, very nice, and not sexual. Not weird or awkward, but he's great, and so I definitely want to give him a shout out. Okay, so now we're at the hospital getting Ron checked out, and I think people's kind of justification for why he even came to the hospital, like Maddie kind of mentioned in her summary, he does not want to be there. He doesn't want to check. He probably hasn't been to the hospital in ages, and I think it's because he was passed out. I think that, he was either like kind of limping half unconscious to the, car into the hospital with Anne, or maybe, I don't know, if somebody got called to help. But either way, I think that's why he is agreeing to this. And I love that we're seeing Anne be a nurse again. It's so good to see her be a nurse because that is what she started as. And that's what I know that they've mentioned that she's like, that's the thing that she's most passionate about. And she loves doing that. So I really, really love that they're bringing that back. It made me really happy to see her and to see her no nonsense attitude. I loved seeing Anne being like, no, Ron, sit your ass down. We're going to get you checked out. And I don't care whether you like it or not, okay? I love seeing Anne like that. It's the best. That's like my most favorite Anne. In fact, that's my most favorite of anybody's personality, I feel. When they're like super nice, but then when they're being treated like terribly, or when I know that they know best and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm setting my boundary. I love when people do that. It's great. So I love seeing Anne do it too. Okay. So Ron redacted all the info on the form, which is hilarious because, like, how did you do that? His date of birth, he says springtime. Again, this is one of those little bits that, we talked about in the animal control. It was just like line after line. You had the work whistle, the possum or a cat, the bark Obama thing. This is very similar, like a little bit of a section, a runner moment. When he says date of birth is springtime, he has one drink, but one shelf is what he means of alcohol. I love his exercise / like physical energy is lovemaking and woodworking. Oh my God, that's epic. That's amazing. That's like gangster. And then his sexual history, epic and private. Love that too. So badass. All right, so now we're at Dennis Feinstein's, played by the wonderful Jason Mantzoukas, who is just all over the comedy world. Like Maddie said, he was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The most recent thing for me was that I saw him in or knew that he was in was Big Mouth with Nick Kroll and John Mulaney on Netflix, the animated series. So good. But yeah, so Feinstein is saying he doesn't like charity. This is another line, again, I feel like could just be written on the page, and it's so funny, where he says, I don't like charity. It feels to me like I'm just giving away money and getting nothing in return. It's so funny to me. Like, literally, yeah. Yeah, that's what charity is, bro. But on the other hand, you do get something in return a lot of the times. Most people, and for most companies, most individuals, I would say it's feeling good about themselves and helping the world. But for companies, and for his company, it would be the branding aspect of it. You know, you get good press, you get good publicity, you want people to know that your brand is safe, and so they're going to buy more from you, and the world goes around. You know what I mean? So that's what Ben's trying to explain. You know, people are going to know the good that you're doing. And then this is the talking head that Maddie mentioned, where Ben is like, he's disgusting, but I want to take his money and give it to needy people, so I'm just going to keep smiling and nodding. It's really funny. Oh yeah, then we bring up Bill Gates, and Feinstein is like offended because Bill Gates to him is a nerd, and he's like, is this a nerd thing? Like, that's offensive, essentially. Lord. Okay, so then we move on to the search committee for looking for new animal control people. The search committee is Chris, Leslie, and April. I actually really love April's line here of, I'm half wolf. And then she bares her teeth. Oh, that's really funny. Good job, Aubrey Plaza. So, so good. Oh my God, also side note, we didn't mention this when we talked about SNL, and I'm so sorry that I didn't mention it, but Aubrey Plaza made her first public appearance wearing a tie-dye shirt introducing one of the bands on the SNL 50th reunion, and she was paying homage to her late husband, who had just passed away recently, because they did tie-dye together, and so she wore a tie-dye shirt, and it was really brave of her. I mean, I hate calling women brave because it just makes it seem lackluster, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Sorry. But it was really wonderful of her, and I'm just really proud of her, of everything that and I'm just really reaching out to her. I feel, I hope she's okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. So Donna looked at all the resumes for people to hire for animal control, and they start bringing in the candidates. And Harris and Brett from the animal control that they just fired comes in, and poor Donna must not have known, because she was just doing her best. They're the only two people that had experience in animal control. Oh my God. And then again with these lines, oh my God. My fave things that Harris says is, I only have one testicle because of a whack-a-mole incident or accident. Brett comes in saying, my name's Brett, I like burgers. And then they see each other and they say Wild Stallion, which is apparently from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So they're like, oh my God, just, doing their stoner thing. April pulls a fast thought out though and says why are all those cops out there? Do you know why? And that immediately gets them to leave because, they're freaked out that they're going to get caught doing something. So that's a bust, and we'll circle back to that later. Now back at Feinstein's, Ben is trying to give more of the pitch of why this is a good idea to invest in the charity and, give them money. And Dennis just tells him to shut up. And I hate that so much. It's can you just be professional at least? And Ben just kind of takes it as they're all kind of doing at this point when he's being mean. And Ben's like, okay. And kind of following through on what he said in his talking head of, I'm just going to smile and nod along. And Dennis suggests that they go to Pawnee Smokehouse to continue the conversation, and they're all, starting to leave, but then he says, let's scent up, and Tom calls the perfume name Ooze. Gross. And then there's another one that has, called Blood Spurt or something like that, and Dennis says not to use it, but then he's like, you're probably fine. There must be something in there that is not approved, or that probably tested poorly. Okay. So now we're continuing the animal control interviews. Jerry's being interviewed, and they're like, this is a good interview. You have all the qualifications. You went to a 4-year college. And Jerry's like, actually, it was a 2-year college when I went there. And Leslie's like, oh, so you're technically not even qualified for your current job. And so they're having to lower his salary. Oh my God. And Jerry's so sweet and is just like, fair is fair. That makes sense. No, Jerry. No. Do not cut your salary. You have a family. Okay. So, well, then we're interviewing our next gal, our next interviewee. And yes, we have talked about her many a time. This gal's name is Katie Dippold, who I always mention because she's a writer on the show. And the way I explain her character to people is this scene. We find out she's deathly scared of animals, but she's a night guardian too. She sees the same therapist, Dr. Richard Nygaard, that Chris sees. And he told her to face her fears, but please just don't give me this job. And that's the line that I always use. Like when I explain the Martin Housley character, the Wood-Eye guy, that scene is his like anchor scene is what I'll call it. And then this scene for Katie Dippold is her anchor scene. Just please don't give me this job. And she wrote Beauty Pageant way back in the day. Wonderful episode. And a few others. And she's worked on a ton of other awesome shows as well. She's also the one in a previous season where April is putting together the adoption adoption site, and she leaves her cats. And she's like, is this where we leave our cats? And April's like, no, and she runs after her. That's also Katie Dippold. So that's like a really fun little runner for that little side character to just be afraid of cats / not want animals at all. Yet here she is interviewing for this job. Oh my god, this next guy. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. I love this actor. He's so funny and he plays it so well. But this next guy asks specifically if the spaying and neutering tools would fit humans and if the door has a lock on it. And to gross out / freak out April, that's a big deal. She's like grabbing Leslie's arm and is like, don't do it. No. Wow. This guy, though, is played by Timothy Horner. He's been in a ton of things. I've seen him in a ton of things. He's definitely a journeyman actor. He's been in Modern Family, Call Me Kat, Superstore, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like a ton of things that are in this comedy world. He was also in Maron, which is Mark Maron's show. Love that. So great job, Timothy. And then Oren comes in. We love Oren. He comes in to interview. He said he studied zoology. That's true. That's great. That's a qualification, I feel, for animal control. Come on. But then he kind of goes back on it or like doesn't make the best case for himself when he says he can control animals with his mind. Although Leslie, you're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Side note, we actually talked to Eric Eisenhower, who plays Oren, a while back in one of the episodes. He sent in some great voice memos, so I'll have to find out which episode that was and post that in there. Because he's super nice, and he's not, drab. All these actors are really so good at acting, because their character is not the same as them. Not to say that you're not a good actor if you're similar to your character, but it's really impressive that Oren was very, monotone, deadpan, and he's just not that way, I feel. At least when I talked to him, he wasn't. So cool that he could pull it out. All right, so now with the doctors, Dr. Harris is checking out Ron, and Dr. Harris is super abrasive and rude too, so it kind of works out great, just like Anne said. I love all the beats in this scene too. The hospital scenes are so good. Dr. Harris is checking his stomach, and we love a Ron giggle, a Nick Offerman giggle. That's a Nick Offerman giggle, come on, according to all the things I've heard about his laugh. Sawdust is in his ear. He's mad that it's balsa wood instead of mahogany for the tongue depressor thing. And I just love all of those. And then we discover that he has strep throat. So he was really sick. That's a big deal. So Dr. Harris writes him a prescription for penicillin, sends him on his way. And this is when Anne says the rest of the test results will be available in 20 minutes. But Ron is like, not interested. Just give me the prescription. Goodbye. And Dr. Harris loves that. That line of hate it when they ask questions. Dr. Harris, great work. And same thing with that actor is Cooper Thornton. We did an interview with him as well. So I'll have to post those too if you're interested. Okay, so we are back at the Pawnee Smokehouse. And Dennis is like, again with this line. Oh my God, this is another one that could just be on the page and be so hilarious. Where he says, they say smoking is bad for you, but is there any medical evidence to back that up? Ugh, such a douche. And they wrote this so well too when Tom is like kissing his ass and saying like, great point. It's so funny. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. And then Ben, poor Ben, he's trying to just do his best by keeping up the charity talk and get him to talk a little bit more about the charity itself. And he's like, stop. Dennis is like, stop talking. I've heard so much talking from you. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, ugh, mean. It's mean. It's mean. And I understand, and like I've definitely heard of people going to have conversations about, donating for charity, and they do a lot of times just want to schmooze and not really talk about the charity until the very end. They want to have like a connection and just a conversation, but at least they're like, well, from what I've heard, they're mostly nice about it, and they're not like this guy. You know what I'm saying? Ugh, so annoying. Okay, so now he's talking about this animal cruelty moment. I hate this, where he says he gets foxes flown in from Russia and they drug them to shoot them and just like walk up on them. And he's like, bam. No. And then he's talking about how it's erotic. That's a little over the line for me, but and then Tom is kissing ass and is like saying what he'll wear on one of their trips. And I guess they do turn it around and break the tension by saying like, I think that dude wants to hunt me. Or that guy wants to hunt me. Yikes. And then this is where it gets really bad. But also where we kind of like it at the same time for Andy, because Dennis is being so rude to Ben, like not even hiding or trying to like be passive aggressive at all. He's just like, I don't want to hear your fat face talking anymore. And then he starts booing him, like actually booing him to his face. And Andy just can't handle it. He can't not say something, which I totally understand, and I'm totally on his side. And Andy just kind of blurts out, you're a dick. And then Dennis has the audacity to say, where are your manners? Come on, buddy. That ain't right. So, and then we see, like Maddie mentioned, we see Eddie the accountant. Ugh, so awful. We see Eddie the accountant saying like, dumb Eddie, awful. And like, just treating him really poorly too. Hate that. But then again, like most comedy shows, they do a really good job of breaking that tension, that like uncomfortable tension, with walking out and seeing Donna surrounded by men, and she's smoking a cigar, and she's just super casual, super cool and badass, like, hello boys. Love that. All right. Now we're interviewing Jam's candidate for animal control, the one that he said was a little grabby, or a war hero, or a war criminal, depending on who you ask. He runs a children's breakdancing studio called DJ Jazzy Vern's. And Vern is played by Donick Carey. I think that's how you say his name, and I'm very sorry if I mispronounced it. But he's primarily a writer, which is really lovely. He was writing on Parks at the time, which is a cool little trivia moment, so they pulled him in to be an actor on the show. He has written on a ton of things. David Letterman's show, The Simpsons, New Girl, Silicon Valley, which also, the writer of this current episode wrote. Megan Amram also wrote on Silicon Valley, and a ton of others. So that's really cool. I didn't know that he was a writer on the show. Oh my gosh, I love this little bit too. He's not a rack of ribs, so stop grilling him. Nailed it. And then Leslie responds with, well, ribs are better smoked than grilled, so I nailed it with the back part of the hammer. I want to start saying that. I nailed it with the back part of the hammer. Then we learn that Jam told this guy he'd just get the job if he got his teeth whitened. No, like nothing necessary. Or this isn't necessary. Why are you grilling me? And Jam is like, ho, 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 da, 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 da. Like, don't say anything about that, because that's bribery. You know what I mean? And so he just walks out, and they kind of move on. I do love his outfit, by the way. I know that's random a little bit, but his red sweatpants, like his little dancer sweatpants, so fun. I think they're Adidas or something. Very good. All right. So in our next scene, we see that Leslie is bringing a gift to April, which looks like lotion, looks like a handbasket of lotion. But for April's purposes, enjoyment purposes, Leslie says that she has replaced the lotion with fake blood, mud, and vinegar, which April says she loves. And Leslie's really trying to butter her up for throwing her hat in the ring for Director of Animal Control. Leslie wants April to be, interviewed and try to be in this, because she knows she loves animals. She knows she's done this before. She's been in the parks department, so she kind of like knows what's going on, and Leslie thinks this is a really good choice. But April doesn't want the confirmation hearing. She doesn't want the job. She doesn't want to do it. But Leslie's pushing her, And, we've talked about this before where Leslie pushes people to do things that they don't always want to do. But I do think that this is a good choice. I think April would do well. So maybe we see where it goes. But April kind of immediately backs out. Or not backs out, just doesn't want to do it. And Leslie does the thing that she always does, like, please, 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 until you finally just agree. Very Dwight-esque, if you will. Please, agree, agree. I do love that line, too. I'll be your Pocahontas. Climb into my papoose. So now April's at the confirmation hearing, and Jam is trying to ambush her. They're talking about her harassing an employee, and she's like, that's my husband, because they're talking about Andy. And this is where Dexhart's line comes up, where he is just showing his slimy, nasty self and saying, those emails are pretty graphic, and I've never even heard of some of those things, and I'm a freak. I just love his matter-of-fact delivery, because that's what it is, really. All right, so then this is where they bring up her drinking in City Hall, which is in, like I said, I think that was in season 1, the Boys Club episode, I believe. Was that Boys Club episode? One of the episodes where they got a gift, and the government is not supposed to accept gifts from outside people. And yeah, she is not really doing anything about trying to, justify her position or say sorry or anything like that. As you probably would maybe in this confirmation hearing, to show remorse for what you've previously done poorly or anything like that. And I do remember Maddie and I were not pleased with her when this happened, because it came back on Leslie, you know what I mean? And it was just like very unfortunate that happened. But anyway, so April's trying to just say, well, it was, delicious. Alcohol's great and it's fun. And then Leslie chimes in and switches April's words to be something a little bit more professional. And Jam is like, oh, are you a ventriloquist? Just being annoying. But also, it is true that Leslie shouldn't be speaking on her behalf, because it is April's confirmation hearing. And it's just like going off the rails. So Chris sees this and is like, she's not ready. No one needs to be jammed today. Oh, Phoebe agrees. All right, so now back at Dennis Feinstein's, they tried to apologize, and Andy's like, look, sir. I almost expected him to say, like, Your Highness or something. But Andy's like, from the bottom of my heart, my bad. I didn't mean to do that. I just started this. And yeah, I'm kind of, again, with Maddie, where I'm like, you shouldn't have to apologize. But at the same time, like, professionally, sure, maybe we apologize. But, like, it's so annoying. He was mean, too. Dennis should apologize, too. And, I mean, Dennis pretends to apologize and pretends to, like, be the better, bigger man by saying, if you came in here and apologize, I will help you. And so he asks Eddie the accountant, to get the check, and they think it's all fine and dandy that he really did donate. And it's terrible. Ben's like, oh my gosh, this is so generous. He opens up the check and it's written to go fuck yourself. Ugh, I help no man. Gross. And then they start fighting and going crazy, and Ben is like, with all due respect, you are a major dick. I love that Ben got his moment in too, and that's probably going to validate Andy, so I think that's really good. So, love that very much. Oh my gosh, and then this, the crossbow thing at the end. Eddie, get my crossbow. I could totally see Jason Mantzoukas improvising that, and just, and because the way Andy responds is like, crossbow, what the fuck? And they cut him off. This run, by the way, I understand. Last week we talked about how I don't love that at the end of scenes, sometimes they're just like, okay, run, because it's a little bit of a cop-out and they don't know how to end the scene, you know what I mean? Which I can understand. It makes sense as a writer, like, whatever. But this one makes total sense. They're about to get shot with a crossbow. Or worse, probably. He probably has a lot of weapons. So anyhow, now we are at where Anne is checking on Ron, and back at City Hall, Ron is feeling healed, and Anne is just telling him the results of the blood work. He looks good except for his potassium. The potassium is low, so just eat a banana once in a while. And this is where Anne makes her wonderful point of like, listen, you're not alone in the world anymore, because Ron says, I'll die the way that I die, and if I'm, I'll just do it my own way. And Anne's like, yeah, that's really beautiful and poetic, but like, that's stupid. because you now have Diane and the girls, and you have people who are counting on you. And it's a great point, and it's wonderful because I feel like so many people don't even try for their family, even at least people in my experience, that I've known or heard from friends and things like that, where they're like, like Maddie said, it's not a generalization. Just a lot of people don't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to deal with it. So this is what I meant at the beginning when I say Ron has a really lovely growth moment, because he would not have done this, a couple years ago. And so I love that he's trying for the good of the realm, if you will. Which, side note, if you listen to the, oh my gosh, the Glennon Doyle podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. Oh my gosh, they're talking about the good of the realm. Anyway, that's all to say that I'm just glad that Ron is thinking about his family, thinking about his health, and he's trying. And that's really commendable, because he wouldn't have done that before. So I love that very much. It's very sweet and cute. I also love Ron's little growls. He growls when she's like, because he knows that Anne's right. He knows that he's being stupid and not thinking about his family, or the people that he loves, I should say. Not family yet. But he's like, I love it so much. Okay, so now Leslie's apologizing to April and saying, okay, never mind. You know what, April? We weren't ready for this. It's all my fault. Just let Vern become director. Just let Jam Sky, deal with it. It's fine. But then April has this idea, as we were talking about at the beginning, which I love so much. So proud of her. And Jam, so they go back into the confirmation, and Jam says, can you give me even one reason why you're the best, guy for this job? And she says, no, I'm not. I can't give you, a reason, but neither is your guy. You're not the best. He's not the best choice either. And she makes excellent points that the animal control department is super tiny. The budget is really ineffective. So it would do better if it would be absorbed into the parks department. And it really is a wonderful idea. And Leslie says, that's a genius idea. Wake up, Milton. History is being made. And he wakes up and shouts, Iwo Jima. I think he did a great job, because sometimes those lines could probably be too charactery, if you know what I mean, too theatery, I guess is the word I'm thinking of. But he did great. Rest in peace to Councilman Milton. Oh my God, love. Okay, so I also love April's line too. If you want, I can even write up a proposal in language even you dummies will understand. Dummies. I like the last dummies. It really makes me happy. So Chris is like, well, listen, you guys have to admit that that's a really smart idea. And Jam says, well, what do I tell Vern? Because I already promised him the gig, and he bought a speedboat. And, that's how we learn that works. that didn't work out. All right, so now this tag is kind of long. We've got two little storylines wrapping up. Andy, Tom, and Ben are wondering what to do. And we saw Andy and Ben's kind of he is a dick vibe, but we hadn't seen it from Tom yet. So this is really lovely that Tom is like, no, you should apologize for apologizing to that guy. He's the worst. And Ben is like, well, we still need money. I really wish that we could have made a better impression and, whatever. And so Tom says, I was impressed. You did make an impression, because I heard about it, and all the stuff that you did for Sweetums is great. I love that line too. Again, I'm such a fangirl in this episode, I feel, because this line of I was really impressed with all the stuff that Sweetums has done for those poor homies, those poor little homies. That was really funny. So this is where Tom says that Rent-A-Swag will donate 5 cents for every $1. Not much, but it'll help. And that is so, so nice. Like I said, that's the third, or one of the 3 growth people is Tom. Tom wouldn't have done that previously. And so I'm really happy that he is growing and wants to be charitable. It's really lovely to see, truly. So Leslie made a nameplate for April. It says the Deputy Director of Animal Control. And we learned that, I don't think it says Animal Control. It just says Deputy Director. But we learned that Leslie had it made the first week she started, the first week she was here, because she knew she was going places. And because April's asking, how did you make that so fast? And I can totally see Leslie having a closet full of these plaques and nameplates and stuff for people that she loves. Totally. And I love this so much, because just with the state of everything going on, I love that Leslie says, today the best idea won. It wasn't about connections and bribery and who can pay the most money for whatever. Today, the best idea won. And that's something that Parks really does so well, is gives us that knowing energy that things can go poorly. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of bureaucracy. Like, there's a lot of, wheels spinning that don't always get anywhere. And we still see that. But then at the end of the day, we also see who we're serving, who we're working for. Government can be great if we give the best idea for who can serve at their capacity and what we can do the best. That's government efficiency. Okay. And I love that. And I'm so happy that April was the one to come up with that idea. Great work, writers. I know I was harsh on you last week, and I'm sorry about that, okay? And then we've got, Chris is still in his wheelchair because of the leg thing, or the foot thing, and he has to go to the bathroom. And I love that she's like, yes, Miss Daisy. And then we've got our, and that's from Driving Miss Daisy, if anyone needed to be reminded of that. Side note. But yeah, then we've got this last little bit, which is the Ron moment, trying to eat the banana. And I love his moment of ladies. And all of his, like, physical bits where he's, like, his foot's up on the desk trying to take, like, a manly stance so that he can eat it. His, like, choking when he even just touches his tongue to the banana is hilarious. And then he finally smashes the banana onto a paunch burger, which definitely defeats the purpose. But you know what? It's something. I don't know. It's a start. Maybe you don't always do that, but it's a start. And yeah, I just love that. My last note was truly what an arc episode for so many of our Parks gang. Ron eating a banana, Tom donating to charity through his business, April climbing the ladder, coming up with great ideas for the government. Just great work all around. And I feel really pleased about this. And maybe it's just the fact that Adam Scott looked into my eyes and validated my ideas about Severance and the Parks crossover, but I feel very happy with this episode. So thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions, where you can find us, TikTok, Park Pals Podcast, Instagram, emails, all the things. I said I read the comments, so be kind to me, please. But also, you're allowed to say your opinion too, I guess. That's fine. It is a democracy here anyway. Okay? All right. Don't forget to rate and review and subscribe. Share with all your friends. Do all the things. And we can't wait to see Maddie next week, hopefully. But if not, we'll see her on the next round. Oh, my God. We're rounding out season 5. And we are about to get to the Star Wars episode, if you will. Okay? Ted Party. Are you kidding me? Patton Oswalt. Come on. Brilliant. Can't wait. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
There's a park and some pals, and there's also therapy too.